Let's get the latest from SABC News correspondent Alex Cadier, who joins us live now from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time. Of course, some very concerning things coming out of the Middle East. Now, an Israeli official who was quoted in the US says Israel is not looking to significantly escalate the showdown with Iran, almost echoing Israeli President Isaac Herzog there, that the country is not seeking war. But what are you hearing, especially now as we know that Israeli cabinet is again set to meet today?
Well, just to clarify, Isaac Herzog, the Israeli president, said this was an act of war by Iran, and all the indications we have at the moment is that Israel will not be responding militarily, at least not in the short term, heeding the warning of its allies. And behind the scenes, Israeli officials are saying, well, what would you do if your country was attacked with more than 300 drones and missiles? What response would you expect your governments to have? But still heeding that warning, a lot of pressure from the United States saying that any response militarily on Iran would not include the support of the United States military, crucial though it was in the last few days to keep the skies over Israel clear. Now, we understand the War Cabinet is meeting again now. They have said they are unified on a response being needed. There will be a response, but what that response will be is crucial. Will it be a response against Iran directly? That seems a little less likely at this stage, or against Iran's proxy groups, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthi rebels in Yemen. That may be a course of action that would be considered military retaliation from Israel without necessarily escalating this into a regional war between two nuclear-capable countries. So clearly, that War Cabinet ongoing now. They've reconvened again about an hour ago. They will come up with exactly how and when to strike back. We understand from some of those members of the War Cabinet, they want to build a regional coalition with some partners, perhaps including Saudi Arabia and Jordan, to further isolate Iran, further push Iran into economic and diplomatic isolation, to ramp up that pressure, and as Benny Gantz, a member of the War Cabinet, said, exact a price from Iran for that unprecedented attack.
Now, over and above, what the U.S. has said, several other countries have called for a restraint, including South Africa. What are other world leaders saying about this particular situation?
Well, we heard the G7 leaders meeting. They condemned Iran in the strongest possible terms. We've heard calls for de-escalation from China, from India, from South Africa, of course, calling for Israel not to retaliate to those 300 drones in missiles that flew at its airspace in the last 48 hours. We had people across the country rushing to bomb shelters as well. We know that a 7-year-old girl, very tragically, is still in critical condition. She was hit in the head by shrapnel from one of those Iranian missiles from a Bedouin community. She is in the Negev desert in the south of Israel. So at the moment, the message from the international community is clear. We heard from the French president. He said France will do everything it can to urge Israel not to escalate. The British Foreign Secretary, Lord David Cameron, saying that this was a double loss for Iran because their military operation against Israel, this sea of drones and missiles, failed to hit any significant targets or make any significant damage, but also revealed that Iran is a violent actor in the region. That was Lord Cameron from the UK. So clearly, international leaders condemning Iran, some of them, others calling for condemnation of Israel for that strike against a consular building in Damascus. All leaders calling for de-escalation at this point.
Let's look at Jordan's position, and what it's saying. We know, of course, that the foreign minister, said that Amman does not want a spillover conflict in the Middle East after, Iran's attack on Israel. He also, of course, stressed an important thing, that all parties to the conflict should focus on the rights of Palestinians in Gaza and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Just talk a little bit about his comments and what Arab leaders are particularly saying, and, of course, leading to the crucial question, what is happening in Gaza at the moment?
Well, there's two separate things there. Let me divide them into Jordan's response. Actually, very interesting. 50 years ago, Jordan and Israel were at war in the Six-Day War, of course. Now, Jordanian Air Force firing, shooting missiles out of the sky, preventing them from crossing their airspace and targeting Israel. Now, the Jordanian leadership making it very clear they did so because they felt Iran's actions jeopardized the safety of Jordanians on the ground because these missiles were flying through Jordanian airspace. They did not do it, we understand, to protect Israelis, but nevertheless that was one of the consequences. You're absolutely right. The war in Gaza still continues. There has been a call for that crisis to end. We heard that from Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, saying that they want to see a humanitarian pause in the fighting now. That has been the message from European leaders for months now. They want to see that ceasefire deal reached as quickly as possible. The latest deal was rejected by Hamas. Nevertheless, the fighting in Gaza carries on. We know that civilians trying to walk up to northern Gaza were hit earlier today. Israeli troops opening fire on a group of people walking up to the north of Gaza. They say they were given permission to do so. The Israeli military urging people not to go up to northern Gaza. But the situation in Rafah remains desperately unsuitable for human life. Total overcrowding, aid trucks still struggling to get in. The crisis in Gaza absolutely rumbles on, even if the situation with Iran may have calmed down.